Welcome to Rewind the Game, a retro football podcast. We delve into football history and football manager history by talking with our guests about their all-time favorite players and the memories with Championship Manager and Football Manager. I want to say a big thanks to all the guests who we have had on for the first 5 episodes. I feel very fortunate that I get to hang out with some fantastic people from the FM community. And thanks to everyone who's watching or listening to the podcast. It's become a little passion project for me, which I'm having a lot of fun with. I'm also excited about some of the guests that we're going to have on for future episodes, especially the one today. Without today's guest, the FM community would not be as great as it is. His Twitch chat is one of the best places to spend your time if you want to watch great save ideas play out and if you want to be in company with one of the kindest people and most welcoming communities on Twitch, the United City FM. Kev, welcome to the show. I'm happy to have you.
I'm delighted to be here. Thank you so much. What an introduction. I've kind of got to live up to it now, I feel, in some way. But it's an absolute pleasure to be here. I've enjoyed watching your podcast as it's developed over the last few weeks. And it's a joy to be here. Let's do retro.
Exactly. I appreciate that. I'm so happy to see you on the show, definitely. So another thing is I've always massively respected how open and transparent you are with your community. I've also heard you say that streaming gives you project and purpose. Would you be kind and tell us what you mean about that?
Yeah, it's a little bit deep, but I don't mind going deep, so it's fine. So basically, I have a disability called spina bifida. It means that through my adult life, I haven't really been able to work. My health doesn't enable me to do that. So to be totally honest with you, at times along the way, my lifestyle, my existence day to day has lacked a bit of purpose. I've kind of had to entertain myself whilst other people go off and do what they do in sort of living their lives and earning money and other bits and pieces. I've never really been able to do it. So in about 2019, 2018, I randomly discovered a Dr. Benji video on YouTube. I was just watching YouTube of other things and it popped up. And Football Manager is a game that I've been playing for a very long time. I'm sure we'll delve into that. But ultimately, I basically thought, well, I don't think I can do it better than Dr. Benji, but I can certainly do my version of what he does. And I'd like to give it a go because I've got time and I've got the desire to do something. So it became my project. Something to sink my teeth into, a YouTube channel, put my saves out there, show how much I enjoy the game. And over time, it brought me purpose because then it was entertaining other people. It was also putting a point in my day that was scheduled and had to be there. And there was a sort of responsibility for that because other people were expecting it, etc. Exactly. So that's kind of where it came from, really, was that. And it has literally snowballed, and it is my project and my purpose.
That's absolutely lovely to hear. And yeah, you started out as a YouTube content creator, right, and made the switch to Twitch, where you're in touch with your community. You are completely in with the chat, right?
Yeah, and that was the reason for doing it, really. I mean, I started YouTube because I felt like, because you could edit. I don't edit very well, but because you could decide what your video was going to consist of and you could retake certain bits if you needed to and all that kind of stuff, it felt like a bit of a safety blanket for me to just put something out there that I could control a little bit.
Yeah.
But actually, the controlled nature of it wasn't really me. I felt like being really quite succinct and short on points that I was making, and the style of video and the editing of it and stuff wasn't really me. I wanted the freedom to express myself in a different way. So a couple of years into YouTube, when the pandemic hit and various situations were changing for me and my wife and our family home, etc., I got the opportunity to step into live streaming, which I always kind of knew was there. And I kind of thought it would suit me better. And when the opportunity arose, I took it. I did both for a while, both making videos for YouTube and live streaming on Twitch at the same time, and just found that I didn't enjoy YouTube as much as I once did. And I really, really loved to stream. And I'm not here to try and make it a full-time job or anything. So it doesn't matter in broad strokes how successful it is, let's say. It matters that it gives me my project and purpose, my point in a day to do something. And so I kind of switched my energies from video making to Twitch streaming. And it feels like, to me, I've said this before on other podcasts, I think, over the years, it feels like YouTube was always like me creating a film to be put in a cinema for people to go and watch. And you don't really have an opportunity to interact with that audience that much. Here and there you do, but it has a disconnect to it. Whereas Twitch streaming feels like they're coming to see the same material, but in theatre form, in terms of live theatre, actors in front of you that you can interact with and laugh and cry at or whatever, and they can interact with that response and go in a different direction than maybe they did last night because there's a different audience in. That's what Twitch feels to me. It's a bit more of a live experience. And it's about community, ultimately. I've been saying for a very, very long time, community over content. And that's now where I see myself. The YouTube was the content, and now I have community, and that fits me better.
That makes perfectly sense, absolutely. And you definitely seem at home on your Twitch channel always. And sometimes wild and unexpected things also happen on a stream. If people head over to your Twitch channel and check out the clip from one of your streams where you were rated by Fabrizio Romano, what did you think when you read out loud who was rating you?
To be honest, at the point where he did that, this was a few years ago now, I kind of knew who he was. I was aware of what he did in the background, but I wasn't overly connected to what he did as a sports journalist, etc., all that kind of stuff at that point. But I knew roughly who he was. And when he raided in and 2,000 people showed up in my stream all of a sudden repeating the same phrase that he'd asked them to put in. I think it was Keiki, the player Keiki they asked to put in. For some reason, I don't quite know why. He was probably involved in a transfer saga at the time or something. It felt like for a moment that I was being trolled or botted or something bad all of a sudden, sort of. So you have that internal mechanism going in your head whilst you're processing what you're seeing in front of you. But within the context of being trolled or botted or whatever, my natural response as a streamer is never to think of it in that way first. It's always to interact with it in the most positive way I can, and then figure out that it might not be the most positive in that sense as we go. So I started just by, a bit befuddled and a bit bemused and tried to remain professional, whatever professional looks like for me, because I'm nowhere near it, and got through it. But it was baffling. It was absolutely baffling. And weirdly, there are one or two people that came in on that raid that are still with me. So even a Fabrizio Romano raid on a completely different thing, because he wasn't playing Football Manager, he was doing his transfer streams and stuff, but he wanted a football connection, I guess, to pass his people onto. Couple of people stuck around, which is amazing. So yeah, thanks Fabrizio, appreciate it. Me and him are now best mates, obviously.
That's how it goes. That's excellent to hear. Absolutely excellent. Okay, we got to get into some retro stuff, which is this podcast's main theme. And it all begins with an origin story. So which team do you support and how did you become a supporter?
Yeah, so I am, for better or worse, and there have been better, and now it's a lot worse, I am a Manchester United fan. I have been for a very long time. The origin of it is that my family were based in and around the outskirts of London at the time, so we're not a Manchester-based family, but then a lot of Manchester United fans are not Manchester-based, are they, in that sense? But the simple reality is I was 7 years old back in the 1983 FA Cup final. Yes, I am that old. It is what it is. And I was watching this final at the age of 7 and realised with a friend of mine called Ben at the time, I don't know where he is anymore, we parted ways many, many moons ago, I realised I didn't have a team to support. Generally in football, my family weren't that bothered. I think, my elder brother was a bit of a Tottenham fan, but I wasn't overly bothered by that. My dad didn't really have a massive interest in football, so I had to kind of find my own way. So myself and Ben, at the age of 7, in our infinite wisdom, basically went, well, I mean, whoever wins the FA Cup final will support them then, basically. And after a replay, I believe it was, because it was a long time ago now, Manchester United beat Brighton in the FA Cup final of 1983. And therefore, I became a Manchester United fan back in the days of Ron Atkinson. So this was before Fergie took over. And all of that success came. I remember the first couple of seasons I was watching under Ron Atkinson, and we were finishing like 15th and 13th or whatever in the Premier League. How times have then changed and then come back again, seemingly. And then eventually, Ron Atkinson got the sack, Fergie came in, and my footballing world changed completely. But that was the origin story for me being a United fan. There was no family connection to it particularly. It was just happenstance. And I could have been a Brighton fan. And the interesting thing about that is Brighton is now my closest city to where I actually live. Many, many years later and many moves later, my family have found ourselves down on the south coast of England. So we could have been kind of almost coming home for me in footballing terms. But alas, it wasn't to be.
Very interesting. Yeah. How things play out. You're not in control all the time, but yeah.
Sure.
That is some coincidence. But yeah, you do touch on it a little bit. Being a Manchester United supporter during the Sir Alex Ferguson era must have been something very special. And when you look back on that era now, because for many, many years, us who's not even supporting Manchester United thought Manchester United will be like this forever. So post Sir Alex Ferguson, things have changed so much. It surprised me as an outsider.
Mm-hmm. It's been painful. I mean, I will preface anything that I'm about to say with, I absolutely, and I really, really, truly mean this. I absolutely detest tribalism in football. You will never hear me disparaging another team of any sort, be it Man City or Liverpool or Leeds or, I don't know, anybody else around the world. I am interested in supporting my own team and not opposing anybody else's. It's just how I live my life. I feel like too many people oppose an opposition team before they choose to support their own team in a way.
Good
and
point.
I genuinely don't understand it. That being said, I totally understand how many childhoods in football my team ruined whilst Ferguson was in charge, because we were very, very good.
Yeah.
And it will be, when we come to my team later that you asked me to produce, I've got a slightly different take on it than some others have maybe, and I've got some names to offer you, and it will show you how good we actually were as a collective over a long period of time. We were very good. But it ruined people's footballing childhood in this country, and I get that totally. So now, what I also understand is that last season, my club, Manchester United, finished 15th in the Premier League, which was absolutely insane for me, even as a fan, watching the decline over the years and watching the struggles with different managers. But ultimately, I get why all of these other supporters out there of all of these other teams are taking great delight in it, because we ruined so many childhoods and they're getting their own back. I get it, but I don't do tribalism in football, and I don't do hating other people's teams. I don't really care what other teams do. I care what my team do. And, let's not go too deep into it, because we like to have a positive and upbeat podcast. The ownership have been awful. I mean, truly awful in the last 20 years, caused all sorts of problems. We are only just seeing that we're still trying to claw our way out of a lot of that. The team has been decimated over that time with poor decisions and all sorts of other bits and pieces. And I don't know where it's going to go next. I genuinely don't. I feel like at the moment, as we speak, at the very beginning of the 25-26 season that we are, I feel like there's a slight upturn in performance from what we saw last season when we finished 15th. But Ruben Amorim still isn't winning enough games, and we've already gone out of the cup to Grimsby and all that kind of stuff. It's still an absolute madness. It's really hard to support them through some of that. But they're my team. I've been doing it for 40 years, 40 plus years. And for however I came into Manchester United as my team, I now can't ditch it. It's just not inbuilt in me. I have to be a Man United fan because that's now what I've been doing for 40 odd years. But yeah, it's painful at the moment, but it was an utter joy when Fergie was around, because it just was.
I can't imagine. I mean, my last 5 different retro databases, Manchester United's team is just absolutely incredible. So it's so weird from an outsider to see what's happened as well. But I gotta say, it's really refreshing to hear about the tribalism, because I don't really get that either. I like the rivalries, friendly rivalries, but focus on your club, and stay loyal. That's what I commend as well.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%.
All right, but when it comes to your story with Football Manager / Champ, man, do you remember what the first version of the game was that you played?
I think what you and I will realise over the next little while that we talk is that I have very broad stroke memories of this sort of thing, but I don't have always have the details of stuff, because I'm quite old, as we've already determined. And it's not a bit. It's just my mind doesn't work that way sometimes. So what I can tell you is that I definitely played the second iteration of Championship Manager. I definitely didn't play the first one. I just found it. I think I was listening to, was it Omega Luke, say that he found it in a cereal packet or on the back of a magazine or something as a demo form. I think I found the same sort of thing back in the day and found a demo of it and played it and then got into it. But ever since that kind of time, and I can't tell you too much about that first iteration and what I thought and how I played it and all that kind of stuff. But ever since that time, I have basically owned every single Championship Manager through Football Manager ever since, in one way, shape or form. But it started all the way back 30 odd years ago or whatever it was. At the second iteration. I definitely didn't play the first.
Do you remember who you used to manage on those early versions?
I mean, to be totally honest with you, before I was a content creator, a YouTuber, a streamer, etc., a lot of what I did was quite United centric, let's say. And at the point of the sort of mid 90s or whatever, the early to mid 90s, when when Championship Manager was becoming more of a thing and you could play more of it. You know, this was when Fergie was hitting his stride and was beginning to win stuff. You know, from 1990 onwards, we began to win stuff as a club. So it was always trying to replicate that and build on that and see what the next few years after that would be. So I did a lot of Manchester United saves, probably far too many to be in any way healthy, let's say, but I did a lot of them. I did venture around, you know, I went to most places that were open to us. I mean, back in the day, there was a situation, I don't know whether you ever achieved this or did this as to where your starting point was, but back in the day, there was a point where you could actually complete the game, that it couldn't generate enough data after that point. So it was 30 seasons in or whatever. So I did that at least once. I think probably a couple of times, once being very much so back in the 90s with PSG, before they were the sort of ultra oil rich kind of thing that they are now. They were just another normal team with a bunch of players. And I completed the game, as it were, and got to the 30 seasons and couldn't carry on with them at least once, I believe. So yeah, I ventured around a bit. I'd also like to thank you for allowing me to relive one of my favoured saves over the years, and that was with Valencia of 07-08. Oh, because back in the day, I've always been a Manchester United fan, as we've established. I don't really go for supporting a team in another country, because I've heard you talk about Denmark being quite a small place, and therefore the opportunity to watch your teams, etc., wasn't as readily available, so you venture out into other places. To me, I was a Premier League or an old First Division football team fan of Manchester United. It was always there. So whilst I watched other countries' leagues like Italy and Spain and the like, it never got me enough to say I've now become a fan of that particular team. I was just a Manchester United fan who loved football. Having said that, Valencia got as close as it ever got with me. That team of 07-08 is just utterly ridiculous. You've got the likes of the youngsters coming through, like Juan Mata. You've got David Silva, David Villa. You've got Joaquin, Vicente, you've got Albiol, Marchena at the back. You've got so many great players. And I played a lot of that particular era with Valencia, if I wasn't playing as Manchester United, let's say, and just thoroughly enjoyed being at my time in there. So having the opportunity to go back on that retro database in the last year or so with your database that you produced, I had a great time. And Nikola Zigic was an absolute beast for me in what I call my tactical approach at the moment, which is Kev ball, which is basically lump it up to a big bloke on the back post. He was amazing. So thank you very much for your contribution to my joy of Football Manager in that, because it was brilliant.
Oh, that is great to hear. Yeah, the fun thing is, back in FM08, I'm unsure if player height were implemented at that point of time, but in nowadays game, Nikola Zigic is 6'6". So, I mean, just the pure fact of that is he can become a beast.
I had a lovely time watching him play. It was phenomenal. So, yeah, it was really cool. But, yeah, back in the day, that was a really, really great team. But the interesting thing for it was, if you go back to 07, 08, in IRL terms, they were a club in a bit of chaos. They had like 3 managers in one season at that point, and it just didn't settle for anybody. And so, you know, being able to do that in Football Manager and kind of almost in a very sort of arrogant kind of way, show them how it was supposed to be done was a lot of fun. I had a great time doing it.
Easy. Say hi to Kev.
Hey, doggo.
Mine's
too shy. She never comes up and sees me when I'm online.
Oh.
I don't know why. It's something about me talking to the camera. She's over in the corner, sitting on a chair, looking very forlornly at me, but won't come over and interact whilst I'm online. It's weird.
It's sometimes my own fault as well, because I've added a redeem to my Twitch stream so people can give him goodies. And when he just hear the word goodies, he will be jumping up my arms.
Fair enough. Yeah, you've created a rod for your own back there, I reckon. With that
exactly.
One, potentially. Yeah.
Definitely. All right. So you do mention that you go way back with Championship Manager. Did you ever play any other football management games?
I did. Briefly, I would say, and not many of them. There was one that I remember that, again, this is my memory and the issue that I have. Genuinely, I'm scared for the quiz later. I'm not going to... if I get 1 point, I'm going to be stunned. I'll be happy with that. So my memory isn't that great. But there was a game, and you will probably know this immediately. I don't know. But it was an international game. It was purely that, and you could set up your international team. I think Italy were really good at the time, maybe, and you could just go in and manage an international team. And I don't know what it was connected to. I don't know if it was an iteration of Football Manager or something completely different, but I have recollections of playing that one.
Okay.
The others sort of, you know, Premier League Manager and LMA or whatever other bits and pieces, I didn't really ever get to. My gaming was, I never played FIFA, really. I liked the tactical side of football rather than the playing side of football. Again, I think that comes down to my disability and not being able to really play it myself in real terms. So, but I loved studying the tactical approaches and other bits and pieces. That's how I watch football. Yeah. I'm not a particularly flamboyant watcher of football. I sit in my own cocoon and I watch what's going on, and anybody else can just go away for 90 minutes and let me watch what's going on. So I was always into that. But in my gaming terms, I don't think I played a lot of sports games particularly. I played a lot of things like, you know, GoldenEye back in the day and other bits and pieces with my siblings at times. But yeah, Football Manager was the one that really grabbed me at the point where that second iteration came out. Around that, I was doing 1 or 2 bits, but nothing to compare to what then Championship Manager really hit me with.
I can only agree, definitely. But when you think back to the years playing Football Manager and Championship Manager, do any Wonderkid names comes to your mind?
Yeah, they do. And to a point where to my right-hand side, just over here, I have a second screen because, you know, streamer, all that kind of stuff. And I had to go and do some of my own research as to remind myself of some of the names that have happened. If you'd have just asked me to recount all of my knowledge of Wonderkids, I would have found 1 or 2. But there were 1 or 2 that I'd forgotten about that were definitely part of me. So even though it's sitting here on my stream, on my screen, sorry, not stream, on my screen, these are people that I had connections with and just sort of forgotten along the way. I mean, Freddie Adu always comes to mind because he was the first one that everybody thinks of. They created this beast of a player that never quite reached the heights, particularly for him as an actual player, but I used him a fair bit. Do you remember Javier Saviola?
Oh, yeah.
This young striker that came around.
From River in Argentina,
absolutely. So he was one that I connected with quite a lot. Anthony van den Boer was always a good right fullback you could get to. Do you remember the two Brazilians? Was it Kerrison and Curlon?
Yes, Curlon was the seal dribbler.
Yeah, absolutely.
That.
So there
Kerrison, I think, was
that had an impact, and I managed to find a bit. I mean, Cherno Samba, I don't know how young I had him, but at some point I had him along the way, and he was at that point where you could basically get 40 goals out of your central defender if you knew what you were doing with it, basically. We've already spoken about another one in Juan Mata coming through at Valencia at the age of like 18, 19 at that point. And around that team was amazing. Martin Odegaard at Real Madrid at the age of 16.
Yeah, true.
Never quite got there. You could be really lucky or unlucky in at a point where you were playing at that level of that time period of game, because sometimes he would hit with them and sometimes he wouldn't, and sometimes you could get him out and sometimes you couldn't in that sense, in that way. But yeah, if you could get him out, brilliant. And then there's two more that I'd be surprised if many people talk about, but you'll probably know at least one of them, anybody that's listening in, and they came from the Monaco team of about 2018. So it's a bit more recent, but Pietro Pellegrini, he's still around at the moment. He's about 25 now, I think, or whatever. So this was only like 6 or 7 years ago. But when he came through, you could find him in the under 18 squads of Monaco, I think it was, and he could become an absolute beast. But there was a second one. I don't know how to pronounce his second name particularly well, but I think it's something along the lines of William Goebbels. Geubbels or something like that. And he was another very young striker. And if you could get the two of them out of Monaco at a very young age, like 16, you were onto a bit of a winner with both of them. So there's a couple of more recent ones for you.
Interesting. It does ring a bell, William, but I can't recall his player profile, but definitely Pietro Pellegrini.
Yeah.
For
same team at Monaco at the same time, those two. Yeah.
That is interesting. But yeah, for a couple of games, Pellegrini was a must-have on the game.
Absolutely. One of my favourite ever. Absolutely. Brilliant.
That is great to hear. That is really cool to hear. All right. So I also asked you in advance to put together your all-time greatest starting 11. First of all, what formation have you chosen to go with for this one?
Well, here's where we're going to do something slightly different than maybe you've seen before.
I like this.
I've been thinking about this over the last day or so since you and I talked. And the problem that I've got, to be honest, my friend, is there are so many good Manchester United players that I've been watching under Fergie over the years that it's very hard to pick an 11, let alone include other players from other teams around the world that you've seen. So I would have genuinely picked a 4-4-2 and put basically 11 Manchester United players in it.
Yeah.
I could absolutely do that. And I've got a list of names of people that are not going to be in in these 11 that I'm going to offer you that didn't make the grade, but could have if I was actually going with what I would have properly wanted to do as a Man United fan. So, Van der Sar, Gary Neville, Patrice Evra, Dennis Irwin, Bruce and Pallister, Ince, Carrick, Scholes, Giggs, Beckham, Keane, Ronaldo, York, Cole, Rooney, Van Nistelrooy, Van Persie. None of those are going into my 11 that I'm offering up to you.
Generations of Manchester United.
Absolutely, but a lot of them would have actually gone into my 4-4-2 of what I wanted to offer you as purely a Manchester United fan and what's had the most impact for me.
Yeah.
But I felt like this is not a Manchester United podcast. It's a retro database, a retro game kind of podcast. So we're going to do it slightly differently. So away from my 4-4-2, which is what Kev Ball is and how I like the game to be played with, Beckham crossing in off the right and Giggs dribbling down the left and stuffing. We're going a completely random formation that I've never seen anybody play, particularly. I've never used in any iteration of FM myself, particularly, but it just gets the team in that I want to have in terms of the players. So we're going 3-1-3-3. That's what we're doing. No explanation other than I was looking around, trying to figure out the players that I really wanted to put in, and it kind of just happened.
Perfect.
And each of those main areas of the pitch, defence, midfield and attack, I have one Manchester United player in each of those. And the rest of it comes from elsewhere. But we'll start with the goalkeeper, who also comes from Manchester United, because it's Peter Schmeichel, because of course it's Peter Schmeichel. I'm a United fan. You're a Danish fan. He was by far and away the best goalkeeper I have ever seen in my entire existence of watching football. Van der Sar was excellent. David De Gea was excellent. You go to England and you look at people like David Seaman and Peter Shilton and Ray Clements and all sorts of other people, and they were brilliant. But Peter Schmeichel is the best goalkeeper I have ever seen play the game. His star jump was ridiculous. His command of his area was ridiculous. The launch on his long throw for counter-attacks was utterly ridiculous in every way. And he was a big personality. Sometimes that caused a few issues with some teammates and other bits and pieces, but by far the best player, a goalkeeper that I have ever seen. I will preface all of this by saying, because of my disability issues and health issues along the way and various other bits and pieces, my ability to watch live football hasn't been particularly good. So a lot of this comes from I am an armchair supporter of football in general. I watch on the telly primarily. That's how I watch the game. So not many of these players I've actually seen live and in person, if that makes sense.
Totally fair. Totally fair.
But
and
that's
obviously,
my goalkeeper.
Obviously, I'm quite biased with the goalkeeper, but it's nice to hear someone else say it differently. He was such a presence. I mean,
he was so ridiculously good. Yeah. So then we get into my back three. One of these names is going to be very, very familiar to you and your podcast listeners, because pretty much every single person always says his name. Every time, pretty much. Yeah. And I'm no different, because it was my era of football. So of course, Maldini has to go into my lineup.
Of course,
he is the number one player that if I could have transplanted him from where he was and put him in at Manchester United, I would have done it for any money in the world that we had to pay for it. He is the one player I would have loved to have, because I thought he was an incredible player.
That says a lot.
Back, could play central defence.
Yeah, exactly.
He can play on the left side of my back three with no problems whatsoever. An absolute brilliant player, technically gifted, calm, composed a lot of the time, had everything you needed. So he goes into my lineup. There might be one or two others in this group that maybe not as many people will potentially pick, but Maldini's ridiculous, so he goes in. He's got an Italian comrade alongside him on the right-hand side of my back three, and that is Alessandro Nesta. In and around the time of sort of the 90s, all that kind of stuff, we had a lot of Italian coverage, as has been said to you by other people in this podcast at times, with a few people like Gaza going over to Italy and stuff. Yeah. So it made us much more aware of Serie A and what that was. So we had much more coverage of it at that point. So you get to know a few people, and there's at least one more from this particular sort of era of football as well that's made my list. But Nesta feels like, I might be wrong, because again, sketchy memory, old man, all that kind of stuff, but it feels like if you think Virgil van Dijk is the best central defender that's ever played the game, you've never seen Nesta and Maldini play, basically. And I suspect others will say, if you think Nesta and Maldini are the best you've ever seen play, you've never seen Baresi play, or you've never seen Bobby Moore play, or Franz Beckenbauer. So you're always going to have that generational thing. But to me, Nesta is one of those where he had everything. He had a bit of pace, he had a bit of presence. He was a big guy, could cover ground, could be commanding where he needed to, but was just really very good. So he goes into my back three alongside Paolo Maldini.
Those Italian defenders, yeah. You don't need many more defenders.
In the 90s, they were ridiculous, weren't they, in that sense? Purely for that kind of level, their defensive stability. I mean, Serie A, when you look in on it from the English perspective back in that time of that period of time, you just thought it was so defensively strong and really hard to break people down, and they controlled stuff really well. So, yeah, that's what I've tried to bring in. So the third of my central defenders is a Manchester United player. And I didn't mention him in the group of players that I would have potentially been looking at. If I was going to do my Man United 11, it would probably be Bruce and Pallister as a collective partnership, because I like what they combined. They were basically Ferdinand and Vidic back in the day, very similar in their sort of their partnership. But I wanted to find one person. And above and beyond every other Manchester United central defender, I think the most impactful individual central defender that I've seen at United was Jaap Stam.
Oh.
Pace, power, ice cold.
Yeah.
There's this brilliant image. I don't know if you recall it or your viewers and listeners recall it. There's a brilliant image. And again, my mind might be slightly sketchy. I think it was somebody like, was it Zamorano, who played for Inter Milan back in the day as a striker, and he came up against Stam. I think it was him anyway. And there was this goal kick happening for Inter, and they were going to launch the ball up. And this bloke was trying to lean back into Stam to push him backwards and get him going. And Stam literally stood behind him, didn't move a muscle, and just laughed his head off, basically, because he just couldn't move him at all, but he was trying his hardest. I loved that about Stam. But the thing that people forget, he was rapid, really quite rapid, and so he could recover really well. And he was in and around the team when Manchester United won all the stuff in '99 and all that kind of business. I think his partnership with Ronnie Johnson is very underrated as a partnership, when you've got Bruce and Pallister and Vidic and Ferdinand to go up against, etc. But Jaap Stam, because he's a mental case, and I loved him. He was brilliant. So that's my back three.
Incredible back three.
I don't think you'd want to mess with them particularly. Nope. If you wanted to mess with them, the problem is you have to get past my single pivot in front of them.
All right.
A little bit more of a more recent player. So, some of my players are going to go way back to the 80s in a moment, but This guy isn't. But I've never seen a player play the position like he did. And it's N'Golo Kante from his time at Leicester specifically. There's a great quote from his midfield partner in crime at Leicester when they were playing a double pivot for Leicester. And his partner in crime basically said, N'Golo Kante plays either side of me. Basically both sides of me at the same time, because he's just everywhere.
Yeah.
In that season that they won it, he was an absolute phenomenon. I think he did brilliantly well for Chelsea when he moved there, but I'm not bothered about that particularly, if I'm totally honest. It was that season at Leicester. I've never seen anybody do it like he did it.
And there's so many
midfielder. Extraordinary.
Yeah. He did a lot of things that you maybe don't notice at first or second glance, and you gotta value that a lot. So I respect that choice, definitely.
Again, he's another one. At any point when he moved to Chelsea, if I could have transplanted him into Manchester United, he would have solved our defensive midfield issues for a very long time.
Yeah,
and we had many of those problems. So, it was a bit disappointing. But yeah, he was definitely one. N'Golo Kante sits in front of my back three. And if you can get past him, brilliant. But look who's behind him, for goodness sake. So
Scary.
Best of luck with that. Yeah. So that's my defensive unit. And then we become a little bit more freeing to be more offensive. So I have basically got three strikers that we'll get to, but I've also got three mostly attacking midfield players as well in front of N'Golo Kante. So the first one, and this is purely and simply, we almost had an opportunity to buy him at United and it didn't quite work out. And when I say that I think at the time we ended up getting Cristiano Ronaldo instead, you might remember that Ronaldinho wasn't far off the conversations for Manchester United at one point. Now, the reason that I've chosen him is nothing to do with a connection that may or may not have happened for Manchester United. It was purely and simply, have you ever seen anybody play the game of football in such a high-pressured environment with so much joy on their face? And that's all it is for me. Brilliant player, technically brilliant, fantastic at everything he did, was a remarkable talent, very exciting to watch, but the utter joy that he played with. And it feels like most of the time footballers forget that they're supposed to be enjoying the game that they play. Most of the time.
Yeah.
So he's in my team purely for that, really, and the fact he's awesome at what he did, but just so much joy. I loved it. That beaming smile of his.
Exactly.
So he gets into my team for that.
Brilliant.
Alongside him, there is, again, another player that I have mentioned already today in the context of Valencia.
Oh.
And also a direct rival of Manchester United in a lot of ways that I don't care a jot about because he was spectacular. And also he was somebody that I really connected in my Championship Manager, Football Manager journey as well.
Yeah.
And that is David Silva.
Oh,
I think he's such a gifted footballer, so good on the ball, so calm in everything he did. I would have absolutely loved him at Manchester United. When he went to City, I was kind of devastated in that sense, just because once you go there, you know, that's it. You kind of, you can't be at United after that, can you really?
yeah. And you knew him from the game
and
before.
I knew him from the game
City signed him off.
so I desperately wanted him at United because
Yeah.
I'd built teams around this guy
Yeah.
for years in Football Manager and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And
Why didn't they call you up first?
I know, right? I know, right? So he is one that got away, but even so, with my, I don't care for tribalism in football. I don't care that he played for City. I cared that he played in the Premier League and lit it up.
Yeah.
He absolutely lit it up with a brilliant team around him. Let's be fair. There were lots of very good players, Yaya Toure and Kevin De Bruyne and Aguero and all sorts of other great players. But I think he's quite special. He never had blistering pace or anything, but always seemed to have an absolute edge on the ball, whatever he did, and was just smart, knew what he was doing and how to do it. So yeah, he makes the grade. I mean, at the sort of time you could think, should it have been Iniesta? Should it have been Xavi? Should it have been Xavi Alonso? Should it have been half a dozen other people from around the world? But he makes the grade partly because of my time playing the game and what he did for that. So that's my midfield two alongside my Manchester United legend. And again, I didn't mention him in my previous list of United players. And I listed Ince, Carrick, Scholes, Giggs, Beckham, Keane, Ronaldo. None of them get into my midfield three, but Brian Robson does. Brian Robson was that player when I first started watching Manchester United that was the absolute superstar of the show. He'd come from West Brom. He was Manchester United captain at the time. He spent half of the 80s being injured and having to be carried off football pitches and stuff because he just gave of himself too much and his body couldn't always cope with it. But when his body could cope with it, he was a leader for Manchester United. He was a leader for England. He was a phenomenal box-to-box midfielder, could get up and down, could be defensively solid, but could get in that late run and become part of your attacking threat at the top of the box as well and all kind of stuff. And there is nobody else that I would want to be in the trenches with, I don't think, if you've got a problem as a football team. I think he would give absolutely everything for the cause and had a lot more skill and stuff about him than maybe people thought. And he was still there at the point in 92, 93 when we kind of won our first league title in like X amount of decades. He was still there, having been there from the 80s and the very, very late 70s. I think he may have transferred in like 79 or something. I can't remember when it was. But he was there for a long time and was a great servant to the club and just a phenomenal footballer that I feel these days, again, generationally speaking, gets overshadowed by Roy Keane or whoever else it might be. And I understand that because Roy Keane was amazing. but so was Brian Robson. And I think he did it at a point where he carried a little bit of the team as well, and didn't quite have the players around him. So he gets into my midfield three with Ronaldinho and David Silva.
Fantastic. As you say, box to box, he could defend, but he also scored goals both for club and country.
Yeah. Absolutely. He was such a phenomenal leader. And there were those key moments for England where he was having to be escorted off the pitch with a ready-made sling out of his shirt because he dislocated his shoulder playing for England and all sorts in international tournaments and stuff. I don't think he ever quite had the complete free run of injuries and other bits and pieces to totally reach the height of what he could have been, but I think what he did was pretty phenomenal, to be honest, with what he had. So
definitely,
yeah, he gets in.
And actually, I always thought that he would become a Premier League manager, and he did become a player manager for Middlesbrough right afterwards, but he didn't have that long managerial career, right?
There's that group of players that came through under Fergie. The likes of, Brian Robson and Mark Hughes and Steve Bruce and the like that have all tried and all been there to a certain level. Mark Hughes is still going in the lower levels of English football currently and all that kind of stuff. Steve Bruce has had his opportunities along the way. None of them have ever quite hit the heights of it, really, as a manager. I don't know whether it's the opportunities they were given, the choices that they made in terms of which teams they went to, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. There were one or two moments. I think Mark Hughes has had a couple of key moments along the way specifically. But yeah, I feel like most of them have had the potential to do something and not quite realised it. And Robson's time at things like Middlesbrough were good. I mean, was he the manager at the time when they brought in Janino and Ravanelli and all that lot? He might have been. Yeah. I can't remember, if I'm totally honest. But that kind of era of Middlesbrough was fun regardless.
Definitely.
But yeah, he never quite hit the heights managerially. But in terms of a player, he was a phenomenon for the time that he was in. So
Great addition.
Indeed.
Respect that.
And then you get my three strikers.
Yeah.
And they're from three different countries.
All right.
For three very different reasons. We'll go with the first one being another trip to Serie A. And what I will tell you is it's not Roberto Baggio, but Roberto Baggio is part of the story for me.
All right.
Because in and around that period of time of watching Serie A and the coverage that we had of it over here in the UK, I thought he was phenomenal. An absolutely fantastic player. And then all of a sudden, pretty quickly over the space of a couple of years, this young whippersnapper came through for Italian football called Del Piero. And all of a sudden it was like, is he the second coming of Baggio in that sense? Is he going to usurp what Baggio did? Now, I'm not here to discuss whether or not Baggio had a better career than Del Piero or vice versa. That's up to other people to figure out for themselves. But all I know, at the age that I was in the 90s, watching that period of Serie A and watching someone like Roberto Baggio get a little bit usurped by a young up-and-coming player at the age of like 17 or whatever Del Piero was, I thought he was phenomenal and therefore had a connection to him personally. Wherever he went, whatever he did, I was always interested to what he did. I think he was a phenomenal player, Del Piero.
Yeah, definitely.
And one of two in my starting lineup here that can play just off the striker a little bit, but still score a bunch of goals. And so he was creative. He could play out wide. You could rely on him to hold the ball well and use it wisely, but he could get on the end of chances as well. So Alessandro Del Piero makes my lineup. May not have been the best player in the world, and even Baggio might have been better, but it had such an impact on me watching somebody come through behind what I thought Baggio was, which was pretty phenomenal. So yeah, Del Piero, he's the one that gets in.
Definitely. That's great. It has to be something, personal touch with you, definitely. So they make such a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So the other one that's got a personal touch to me that wasn't a Manchester United player, although I'd have liked him to have been, has a very similar story to one of my other players in that Football Manager, Championship Manager, wherever the iterations fell, was a key part, and so was Valencia, and it's David Villa. the two of those, the two Davids, David Silva and Villa, were so phenomenal to my mind at that level of playing the game, but also watching them IRL as well. David Villa is not the biggest striker. He's not the fastest striker. He's not got the biggest aura about him, etc. There's nothing that you look at with him and think he's going to be the best but he was just really great. I mean, an honourable mention in terms of World Football to original R9 of Ronaldo, Brazilian Ronaldo, who's utterly ridiculous and a freak of nature. But he didn't quite have the impact on me that David Villa did, purely through my playing of the game more than anything else, really. Because everybody can see Ronaldo was brilliant. But yeah, I didn't use him very much in the game, I don't think, particularly. Couldn't tell you why specifically, but I didn't. But I did with David Villa, and I think he was just a phenomenal goal-scoring machine. And at a point where I started paying more attention to the likes of Valencia, again, in a slightly struggling setup, 3 managerial changes in a season and all stuff, but he was still great and still scored a bunch of goals for them. So he gets in purely for my own personal connection to him through that.
He was fun on the game. He was so much fun on the game.
And recently going back and pairing him up properly with Zigic was just ridiculous. In every way, it was just utter ridiculous. I mean, Zigic stole the show to a point in my recent retro database save with it all. But David Villa was fantastic. So yeah, definite option for me as one of my leading strikers. So he goes in. And then we have my final player and my final Manchester United player, and probably my favourite, most impactful player of all time for me to watch within my own era of football. And again, not Ronaldo, not York, not Cole, not Rooney, not Van Nistelrooy, not Van Persie, not Mark Hughes, not Brian McClare. Eric Cantona. Eric Cantona is the king. Now, he is a flawed genius, as many of these players can be in one way, shape or form. They are human and they do daft things and sometimes really not very nice things and other bits and pieces. I get all of that, and some will balk at Cantona being my favourite player in the world of football ever because of some of the things that he did and some of the things that he said and, fights that he got into and all that kind of stuff. I get it. And I'm the nicest man in the FM community, apparently. I should be trademarking that one by now. Everybody says it enough. And I'm not one for conflict in any way. I hate it with a passion in my own existence. And I don't like what Cantona did in certain situations either, particularly. But when you put him on a football pitch, he had the biggest impact on any individual team as an individual player that I have ever seen, barring maybe Maradona dragging Argentina to the 86 World Cup, or maybe someone like Steven Gerrard and the impact he had for a Liverpool side that I didn't actually think was that great at the time, and he was phenomenal. But Eric Cantona for Manchester United, in and around his long suspension that he had for doing bad stuff and all sorts of other bits and pieces, we missed him when he wasn't there, and when he came back, we were a completely different animal as a football team. And he was the last jigsaw piece in the puzzle. He came in and around that time when we started to win stuff, because the class of 92 were already there. We needed one or two people to lead the way. And we had this great crop of youngsters, and all of them will tell you that he was a complete maverick and a complete, he would do his own thing, but he would be the one that sets the standards in everything that they did in training and staying after and doing more stuff, etc. And I think he was a leader in his own way. But the touch he had of a football, I mean, those little dinked lobs from just outside the area that he did on a couple of occasions over flailing goalkeepers that could never get anywhere near it, was utterly ridiculous.
And he scored some important goals as well, didn't he?
Absolute vital moments that he would step up and be the leader and be the catalyst for what we needed him to be, which was phenomenal. But he was also able to do, as I said, with Del Piero, drop in the space, get involved in the play. Aerially, he was really dominant. He was like 6 foot 2, 3, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
He wasn't utterly incredibly massive, but he was big enough, and he had a real great leap on him and a very stocky build that meant it was difficult to get off the ball. So all round, he had such an impact on my team that I was watching, and was just the number one person I will always have on my first team sheet. If I could get anybody in, it would just be King Eric, because he ruled that place, and he was rightly the king of Manchester United at that point. Nobody has come close, to my mind, in dominating a team like he did for United in and around that kind of period of time. He wasn't there for that long, really. It wasn't like he had a decade plus time at Manchester United. It was a few seasons, a few very good, impactful ones, but it wasn't a mega amount of time. But the impact he had, and he was a complete Looney Tune as well. Let's face it, he was off his rocker and still probably remains that in a lot of ways, but I kind of liked that about him in his way. Brilliant. He's my number one.
Such a character, but yeah, you gotta appreciate the things he did on the pitch. And yeah, as you say, he was there for a short spell. He was there in 94, 95. He was retired before Manchester United won the treble in 98.
Yep. So it wasn't a long time, but it was a brilliant time and a real wild ride along the way, But it was necessary. We'd won a few bits and pieces and done a few bits and pieces here and there, but he was really impactful because we had such a young group. That one season where Ferguson sold Mark Hughes, Andre Kanchelskis, Paul Ince, a couple of others, and bought in young kids in Scholes, Beckham, Nicky Butt, Gary Neville, Phil Neville a little bit later, all that kind of stuff, that kind of group. You had to have people around them. And we had Brian Robson still at the club, and we had Eric Cantona come in, and we had the likes of Bruce and Pallister at the back for a while, and all that kind of stuff was necessary for the type of team that we were trying to knit together.
Yeah.
And then eventually, of course, those players move on, and the class of 92 become those players for other people coming in, and then the cycle carries on under Fergie, But yeah, Cantona was a vital piece in and around that period of time to come in and really cement ourselves as a true force, I think.
Definitely. And I can imagine Schmeichel and Cantona clashed a couple of times outside the pitch.
Yeah, I can imagine so, absolutely. And I know they did. There's a few screaming matches from Schmeichel at the back to all sorts of people, but yeah, I don't think it was always the happiest of camps behind the scenes necessarily. There's some clashes along the way of personalities right the way through to people like Roy Keane coming in and doing something similar. But sometimes I feel like you need that niggle in and around a group to make them what they can potentially become, If it's all fluffy love and light, I'm not sure it has the edge about him that sometimes is necessary to win the stuff that we did. Yeah. But, that's my team. I think it's a really good team. I think actually it's quite balanced in terms of how it fits together and the things that they can do. But, honestly, 4-4-2, pretty much a United 11, and I'd be very happy. And I could give you 3 different versions of that team over 3 different days, depending on how I feel.
Yeah. I appreciate the approach you took to this team and the time you took to put it together. I really, really appreciate it, mate.
It's been fun to do.
It's good to hear those stories that connect you with those players, why you have chosen them. There's no wrong answers because it's your team.
Yeah, perfect.
So that's absolutely brilliant. But we got to move on, and we can't drag it out any longer, Kev. We have a quiz we got to get through.
No, we could drag it out a lot longer. We absolutely could. I mean, we could talk about all sorts of things for another hour and a half if you like. I don't mind, honest.
We got to do it, Kev.
Okay.
It's time for the Retro Footie Quiz. So 6 people have so far earned their spots in the quiz leaderboard, and the current standings look like this. Musterman and Limo are top of the table, tied with 7 points each. Then we have FM Lama, who comes in 3rd, while Paul the Northman sits in 4th position, Omega Dad in 5th, and Omega Luke in 6th. So now you know what it takes to break into the top 3.
Now I know that I've just got to get 1 point and try not to lose to Omega Luke. That's all I care about at this point, to be honest.
Of course. But to be fair, I hope for all my guests to do well, but I haven't made it easy.
No, I would imagine not.
All right, let's jump into it. Here we go. The first question for you, Kev.
Mm-hmm.
On which version of Football Manager did they introduce the 3D match engine?
You see, this is my problem. Memory. My problem is, that's my problem. Okay. Let's see if I can get anywhere near this. And I'm not expecting to get anywhere near this, if I'm totally honest. And I've been playing this game since Champ Manager 93 or whatever it is. So they all merge into one. I played on flashing commentary text for a very long time.
Yeah.
I played on 2D for a pretty long time. I feel like it's got to be somewhere around 2014? I don't know. That's my guess.
2014 is your guess?
Yeah, I'll go with 2014.
It is unfortunately correct. But the good thing about this quiz is I have 3 options for you, so there's 1 point to salvage.
Incorrect.
If you get it now.
Here we go.
3 options is FM08, FM09, or FM10.
Okay, earlier than I thought then a little bit. It's been around longer than you think it has.
Yeah, right, really. Yeah, I agree.
Again, I'm not going to know, but I'm going to plump for 09 just for the sake of it.
That gives you the first point of the quiz, Kev. 09 is the correct answer.
I got a point. Yay.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm happy now. Bring on the rest of it. I don't mind.
Exactly. That's the attitude. I'm happy to see that. All right. A little bit of Premier League history for you now.
Go on.
The second question. Kevin Phillips had a wonder season for Sunderland in 1999/2000, scoring 30 goals in the Premier League to become the top goal scorer. But who came in second in the top scorers table that season?
Sorry, in the question, did you say which year that was?
Just 1999/2000.
1999 to 2000. Okay. So, where would people have been at that point? What was Shearer doing? Was he... And then Man United had come off the treble winning side. And so they still had the likes of, I guess, York and Cole around. And like, might have been one of those, but I don't think it would have been. I mean, Kevin Phillips and Niall Quinn were amazing, weren't they? Let's use that as an aside, as a Sunderland duo, big and little. Yeah. I'm going to have to randomly go for Alan Shearer just because I can't think of anybody else that might have been in and around there. I mean, I don't even know if he was where he was at that point, to be honest. But I'm going to go with Alan Shearer.
That's a good idea, Kev. That's 3 points.
Wow, okay. Yeah, I mean, that kind of... it shouldn't surprise me in any way because he was a phenomenon and all that kind of stuff, but it's just getting the right year and where they were and how successful they were at the time. You know,
exactly.
If you'd have said it was the year after that he did it, I would have gone, well, of course, probably. Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's how it is, yeah. But he did come in second with 23 goals and York and Cole right behind him.
I see. I thought they might be around there, but I didn't think individually either one would have quite topped it.
But it doesn't matter. You got 4 points in total now as we move on to the third question. And all our contestants so far got a question from this category. Mm-hmm. And no one's been able to get it right with the first guesses because it is some silliness.
Yeah, I am aware of this.
What is Dennis Irwin's middle name?
Ooh, Dennis Irwin. Now, I mean, I'm a massive Dennis Irwin fan, and in my 4-4-2 Man United 11, he would be my left back.
He would have been there,
He was a phenomenal player.
Yeah.
Do I know his middle name? Not at all. So it's a complete guess. What sounds right to me? Dennis Martin, Dennis Matthew, Dennis Andrew, Dennis Benjamin, Dennis Martin Irwin. There you go. Don't know why. Just feels like it could be.
We got an answer, and it's not correct.
What a surprise.
I said it before. When someone knows the answer to this silly question,
that'll be a day.
That will be a day, definitely. All right. The chance to start with 1 point. I have 3 names for you. So, is Dennis Irwin's middle name Patrick, or is it Ryan, or is it Joseph?
Oh, right. Okay. Well, I reckon, having watched Man United as closely as I did, if his middle name was Ryan and we had Ryan Giggs at the time, somebody would have mentioned it in a commentary of some sort. I reckon. So I don't think it's that, but I can't tell you either way. Patrick is a very Irish type sounding name, and obviously he was Irish. I'm veering towards that, but I don't really know why, and I can't even remember what the third one was.
Joseph.
Joseph. Okay. Could quite easily be Joseph. Could quite easily be Ryan. I'm going Patrick just because it sounds Irish. And whether that makes me a good or a bad human being for that, I don't know. But that's what I'm going with. So I'm going with Patrick.
So Dennis Irwin's full name is Dennis Joseph Irwin.
I thought it might have been, but, yeah, there we go.
Unfortunate. It's a difficult one.
Lovely name, Dennis. Lovely.
Yeah.
He was a phenomenon. Never gave you anything less than a 7.5 out of 10 every week, I would say. Never the superstar. Never got you a bad rating. Phenomenal.
So solid. Definitely. And he had that free kick skill as well, right?
And he was also a right-footed left fullback, which was pretty unheard of, really, along the way. Took penalties at times, took free kicks, got up and down that wide left-hand side, and you wouldn't know he wasn't left-footed half the time. Just a phenomenal professional footballer.
Yeah, I was definitely also a fan. It does take us on to the 4th question. It doesn't get easier, but the 4th question is what we call the super chance. So if you guess this correctly, spot on, you'll get 5 points. If you're one off, you will get 1 point.
Okay.
So the question goes like this. How many goals did Ian Wright score for the English national team?
Ooh. Okay. Now, I think he was underappreciated and underused a lot in his England career. Did brilliantly for Arsenal and Palace and various other teams. So I don't think it was a mega amount, but I would suggest that whenever he was playing, he was probably a threat of some sort. So I'm going to say that he scored 21 goals for England. That's what I'm going to go with. I don't know whether that's anywhere near a ballpark of it or not, but I'm going to go with 21.
It doesn't give you 5 points, neither 1 point. It is a bit off. I should say underappreciated, or maybe the competition for places back then caused that Ian Wright only played 33 games for England.
So it's a lot less, I would imagine then.
And scored 9 goals.
Yeah. I knew he was underappreciated and underused. I probably just assumed that he would still score goals when he got given the chance. So, yeah, my bad on that one, definitely.
It is a tricky one because he scored more than 20 goals for Arsenal season after season, right?
Absolutely. Phenomenal striker. Just one of those players. I think it was it FM Lama when he was on your first episode mentioned that Steve Bruce is the best English player never to get an England cap. And he was a phenomenal central defender with Steve Bruce. But he had Tony Adams and all sorts of other people in and around him and just never got the call up. Yeah. And Ian Wright's the same, He had phenomenal strikers around him at the time and just never quite got the call up. It's unfortunate for him because he was great.
Absolutely. All right, you still stand on 4 points. And we are now coming to the last question. Let's see if we can add some more points before we are done.
Okay.
5th and final question. What year did the FA Charity Shield change name to the FA Community Shield?
Ooh. I think people still get it confused and call it each of those every year, personally, as to which way round it was. So it changed from the Charity Shield to the Community Shield. When did it do that? Okay. I feel like it probably happened after the Premier League started. So we're looking from like 92 onwards, I would imagine, is my thought. So that's going to be my basis. I reckon it was probably a little while after that. I'm going to go 2004 for no reason other than why not? Because I don't know.
Your reasoning gets you pretty close, but not totally correct.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll give you 3 options to choose between.
Go for it.
2001, 2002, 2003.
Oh, I was close.
Yeah,
I
very
was
close.
really close. That's such a shame. I'm a little bit gutted over that one. 2001, 2, 3. Let's go with. I'm gonna get the wrong one, I suspect. So I went 2004. Let's go for the other even number then, and go for 2002 for reasons.
That's correct.
Oh, I'll take it. I'm quite gutted that I didn't get that one though, to be honest, being so close. But yeah, I'll take it.
It's 5 points in total. That's solid. That's a good job, Kev.
I'm absolutely ecstatic, but I'm going to be living off that. I might even put it in my Twitter bio, for goodness sake, for a while. I'm that surprised by it.
Definitely do that. And yeah, there was some controversy to why it changed name back in the day. Something about how the FA distributed funds raised from the match, something like that. Yeah.
Who knew that there would be issues within the running of football?
Yeah, surprise. All right, thank you very much for being brave and taking part in the quiz, mate. We much appreciate it.
I did my best.
You definitely did. We recently learned a bit more about the long-awaited FM26. Have you made any plans for what kind of saves you're going to do and what you're looking most forward to with the new game?
Yeah, I have got a few plans for my streams. I mean, they've changed a little bit. Originally, before 25 was cancelled and, all of that happened, my intention was to do kind of something similar to what I usually do, which is often a journey save. I feel most comfortable in that kind of context where I can move about a bit and find some new stories along the way and still have a goal of some description. Most of my saves have been that. And I was intending to do another one. I was going to call it, and I still might do this at some point, I was going to call it the Boomerang. It was FM Llama that called it the Boomerang when I told him what the save idea was. And with the addition of the women's game into Football Manager for the first time, the idea was to start in England in the Women's Super League, win that. And once I did, I was going to visit a country in each continent that I'd never managed before on Football Manager in my YouTube or streaming days, and I was going to go and win that particular league to then move on to the next continent and find another country that I'd never been in, and I would work my way from England all the way round the world and back again to England to win the English Men's Premier League as an end point, hence the Boomerang, because it comes back to where you started, basically. So that was my original intention. A couple of months ago, and I still might do that at some point, but it's not going to be my main save for FM26. A couple of months ago, for an unknown reason, and I genuinely don't really know what the reason was, I started to get the itch to do a one club save, which I very rarely do, because, as I say, I feel more comfortable being able to move and find new stories. And I found that maybe there were aspects of how I play the game and how I set my clubs up that I'm missing out on because I'm not staying for long enough. I'm not developing youth, etc. I'm not, looking after the finances of the club ultra, particularly well, because in a couple of seasons I'll probably be moving on and doing other things. And I felt like I was missing out an aspect of the game that, if we go all the way back before I was a content creator of any sort in like 2019, before that, I used to go and, spend 30 seasons at PSG and build them up as a force, as an individual thing. So I started to think maybe I wanted to do a one club save. So I had a bit of a think about that, decided that is actually something that I would quite like to do. So I have put the Boomerang on hold for now. I will do some form of women's football beta early access save, to shine a bit of a light on that as a new feature and try and support the women's game as much as I can within that. And we might revisit that through the cycle of FM in various ways. But my main save is going to be a one club save with a relatively local side to me down in the Vanarama National League South of Worthing. Right the way down on the south coast, about, 15, 20 minutes away from Brighton is Worthing. I don't live in Worthing. I don't have a connection to it specifically. I live around Worthing, fairly close by. And so I've decided that I wanted to take a club that I could actually potentially, if I wanted to, go and visit and go and, watch a few matches along the way, see if I can get a connection with them. I mean, the superhero that is Y Callum has made it so every Football Manager content creator wants a connection to a club of some sort if they can get it. And we're all unlikely to get it, let's face it, compared to what he did with the great Slough football club. But yeah, that's my attempt. I'm going to go and play the game with Worthing from the Vanarama National League South, and I'm going to see if I can take them all the way up to the top and do something that's a little bit out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
Most of what I do is journey saves.
Exactly. Very, very interesting. I'm already looking forward for that. And could you please tell people where they can go and watch your lovely FM content?
Sure. You can find me at the United City FM, both on X or Twitter, whatever you refer to that. Blue Sky, I've got an account there, but my my Twitch streams happen at the United City FM as well. It's a bit of a long-winded name. It was for many reasons. I don't always think it's the greatest, but it is what I've got. I'm not changing it now because people know who I am. But that's where you can find me. The United City FM on Twitch every weekday afternoon, 2 till 5 p.m. most of the time.
Go and show your support, guys. Do yourself a favor and follow Kev instantly. And thank you for joining us on today's episode. It's been an absolute pleasure, Kev.
It's been my joy. I've really enjoyed it. It's been a fun look back at a lot of stuff. And, along the way, maybe my memory wasn't quite as bad as I thought it might be, but it's still a bit of a grey old matter. Who knows? But thank you. I appreciate the invite. I've really had a good time. I enjoy what you put out in all of your different iterations, and the podcast has been great so far. I've watched all of the episodes, so keep up the good work.
Thank you very much. That means a lot coming from you, my friend.
Pleasure.
That is it for us today, guys. Please leave a like and a comment as well. Subscribe to get notified when new episodes are out. Your support are greatly appreciated. Thank you for watching. Until next time, take care.